Hello everyone, I'm Helen from Susan's family. Today, I'm showing you how to make a Sunglow shawl. This tutorial's pattern is available on en.susuddiy.com. Please feel free to view on it. The shawl consists of two main parts, the main piece and the I-cord. The main piece is divided into three sections. First, complete the main piece, then work the I-cord around the main piece. First, work section 1 of the main piece. Start with the cable cast on. After casting on, work back and forth in rows. The chart looks like this grid pattern. Work odd numbered rows on the right side. View the chart from right to left. Work even numbered rows on the wrong side. View the chart from left to right. When working on the wrong side, check the key to work the corresponding stitch. During this process, you'll need to alternate between two colors of yarn. You also need to increase stitches on one side of the fabric. This will create a slanted curve. There are many different stitches used. The chart will indicate them all. I won't go through each one here. Please watch my demonstration of the specific knitting method. In the actual knitting process, you'll need two colors of yarn. I will refer to the solid color yarn as color 1. The variegated yarn will be color 2. When using variegated yarn, starting with different color segments will result in different effects. You can choose the starting color segment based on your preference. If you need to change the starting color segment, you can take the yarn of the corresponding color. Then cut the yarn. Start knitting with the corresponding color. To make it clear for everyone, I will use two types of cotton yarn for the demonstration. The colors are random. For specific yarn details, color schemes, and needle size, please refer to the detail pages and the pattern chart of our product. First, start with the cable cast on. Take out color 1 and cast on 3 stitches. Once completed, the casting on is done. Next, we will join color 2. Begin working row 1. Here, leave a long tail of color 2. And tie a knot with color 1. Move the knot to the base of color 1. Then use color 2 to knit 1 stitch. Work 1 back loop cast on. Continue knitting 2 stitches. Pull tight the yarn tail of the cast on. At this point, row 1 is completed. Continue working row 2. Turn your work. Still use color 2 for knitting. Slip 1 stitch purlwise. The next symbol in the chart is a knit stitch. Knit the corresponding stitch. Continue working. Row 2 is completed. Continue to work row 3. Switch to color 1 for knitting. Turn your work first. Then bring the yarn of color 1 from the front. Pull it up. Then knit 1 stitch. Work 1 back loop cast on. 3 knit stitches. Row 3 is completed. Continue to work row 4. Slip the first stitch purlwise. Then knit 1 by 1 accordingly. Knit the last stitch. Row 4 is completed. Next, work row 5. You need to switch to color 2. Similarly, bring the yarn from the front. Gently pull to tighten here. The subsequent knitting method is the same as before. Start with knitting the first stitch. Then work 1 back loop cast on. Then knit the remaining stitches. Row 5 is completed. For row 6, similarly, slip the first stitch purlwise. Then knit the remaining stitches. Complete row 6. Continue working in the same manner as before. Change colors every 2 rows. When switching colors, bring the yarn from the front. This will create a crossing texture here. After switching colors, gently pull to tighten the yarn tail before working the first stitch. Continue working until you complete row 23. During the knitting process, be mindful to tidy up the yarn tails. After completing, work row 24. Slip the first stitch purlwise. Then knit 6 stitches. The symbol for the next stitch is SL1PW2R. This stitch pattern will span 3 rows. The first row needs to be worked as knit stitches on the wrong side. The next 2 rows are slip stitches. This is the first row of the corresponding stitch pattern. Here, knit the corresponding stitch. Continue by knitting 3 stitches. Next, you'll see the symbol for SL1PW2R again. Using the same method, work 1 knit stitch. Continue knitting the remaining stitches. Finish the last stitch. Row 24 is completed. Work row 25. Start with 1 knit stitch. 1 back loop cast on. 2 knit stitches. Next, you'll see the symbol for SL1PW2R. This is the second row of the corresponding stitch pattern. Slip the next stitch purlwise. The next stitch is double wrap knit stitch. Insert needle into the stitch on the left needle. Yarn over twice. Pull out. Complete the double wrapped knit stitch. Continue and work 2 more double wrap knit stitches. After that, you'll see the symbol for SL1PW2R. Similarly, this is the second row of the corresponding stitch pattern. Slip the corresponding stitch purlwise. Continue knitting each stitch accordingly. Finish the last stitch. Row 25 is completed. Continue with row 26. Slip the first stitch purlwise. Then, knit 6 stitches accordingly. Next is the symbol for SL1PW2R. This is the third row of the corresponding stitch pattern. Bring the yarn to the front and slip stitch purlwise. The next stitch is called ink 3 STS into P3 tog. Work according to the following method. First, release the first loop from the double wrap knit stitch. Release them in order. Form 3 large loops like this. Move the loops back to the left needle. Then knit 3 stitches together. Insert the right needle through the 3 loops on the left needle. Knit 1 stitch. Do not release the loops yet. There is now only 1 loop on the needle. We need to increase 2 more stitches. Yarn over once. Then insert into the same position and knit 1 more stitch. This completes the stitch pattern. The next symbol is for SL1PW2R. Similarly, this is the third row of the stitch pattern. Slip stitch purlwise. Knit the remaining stitches. Row 26 is now completed. Consider the two SL1PW2RS and the stitches between them as a group of pattern. For the remaining group, I will explain according to the knitting method. Next, work row 27. Change colors and knit the corresponding stitches. When you encounter the group pattern, knit the corresponding stitches, knit to the end. After completing, turn your work. Continue working row 28. When you encounter the SL1PW2R, this is the first row of the corresponding stitch pattern. Knit the corresponding stitch. Continue knitting. You'll encounter the next SL1PW2R. Knit the corresponding stitch for the first row. Continue knitting down. After completing, row 28 is done. Switch colors and work row 29. First, refer to the chart and work to SL1PW2R. At the corresponding position, this is the second row of the stitch pattern. Slip stitch purlwise. Then work 3 double wrapped knit stitches. For the next SL1PW2R, slip stitch purlwise. Knit the remaining stitches. Knit the last stitch. Row 29 is completed. Continue working row 30. First, refer to the chart and work down. At the SL1PW2R position, bring yarn to the front and slip stitch purlwise. Move on to deal with the double wrapped knit stitches from the previous row. First, release first loops of the double wrapped knit stitches. Move them back to the left needle. Then knit 3 big loops together. Do not release the loop yet? Increase 2 more stitches as former steps. Release the loop. This completes the ink 3 STS into P3 tog. Slip stitch purlwise. Knit the remaining stitches. This completes another group. For the remaining rows, follow the pattern to work the corresponding group. As you work, the number of groups will increase. No matter how many groups are added, the knitting method remains the same. Color changes also happen every 2 rows. In odd rows, except for the second to last row, no increases are needed. For the rest, increase 1 stitch. By working a back loop cast on the second stitch. On even rows, slip first stitch purlwise. This side forms a large braid texture. At the same time, there are 7 stitches between the group patterns. And the bottom one in the diagonal row of group patterns is also 7 stitches away from the edge. While knitting, remember to check the stitch count. When you run out of yarn during the process, you need to join a new yarn. The method for joining the yarn is the same as in the first row. Leave a long tail for the new yarn. Tie a knot with the previous yarn. Move the yarn tail to the base of the loop. When joining color 2, pay attention to selecting a color that matches or is identical to the ending tail to start joining. Refer to the chart for the remaining rows. Finish the remaining rows. Now, the instructions for section 1 are complete. Next, we move on to section 2. Work back and forth along the top area of section 1. During this process, some rows require decreasing, some rows require increasing. In certain positions, short rows need to be worked. To create the texture like this, the new stitch is used. SKP. Please watch my demonstration. Here I will use this small sample for the demonstration. First, work row 1. This row does not require any increases or decreases. After switching colors, simply knit evenly. I have already completed this part. Now, work row 2. First, slip the first stitch purlwise. Then knit 5 stitches. The next symbol is for SKP, which means you need slip 1 stitch knitwise. Knit next stitch, pass slipped stitch over. After completing, continue knitting and decreasing following the pattern. All decreases are all worked as SKP. Omitting the repetitive parts here. Knit the last stitch. The method for row 2 is now explained. Continue with row 3. Starting from this row, you need to create short rows. First, knit corresponding stitches evenly. Knit down to the corresponding stitch count, or refer to the chart and knit until the remaining stitches are reached. I have completed the corresponding stitch count in my sample. Do not knit the remaining part for now. Row 3 is now complete. Work row 4 next. For section 2, the row numbers mentioned refer to the row numbers on the right side of the chart. Turn the work. Here, start with a double stitch. Slip it as if to purl onto the right needle. Then pull the yarn tight. You can see that the loop forms 2 legs. The double stitch is now complete. Continue knitting the corresponding stitches. Knit the last stitch. Row 4 is complete. Continue knitting row 5. Similarly, knit until there are remaining stitches on the left side. Row 5 is now complete. Next, knit row 6. Start with a double stitch. Then knit the remaining corresponding stitches. Knit the last stitch. Row 6 is complete. Continue using the same method as the previous 2 rows. Keep knitting. At the end of odd rows, reserve the corresponding number of stitches without knitting them. Refer to the pattern for specifics. At the start of even rows, work a double stitch. Continue working until row 22 is completed. After that, work row 23. I will continue using the small sample for demonstration. First, knit the corresponding stitches evenly. Knit until you reach the second double stitch on the left side. While knitting, you will encounter the first double stitch. Here, pick up these 2 strands of yarn. Which means inserting the needle below the yarn loop. Knit 1 stitch. Continue knitting. When you reach the second double stitch, pick up 2 strands and knit 1 stitch. This completes the method for row 23. For row 24, start with a double stitch. Knit the remaining stitches correspondingly. After completing this, for the odd rows, knit until you reach the second double stitch on the left side. For even rows, start with a double stitch. Continue working until row 41 is completed. During the process, when you encounter a double stitch, pick up the 2 loops on the left needle. Continue knitting. At row 41, you will reach the edge. From row 42 downwards, slip the first stitch of even rows purlwise. Then work even, corresponding to the stitches. The method for slip stitches on this side is the same as in section 1. No increases are needed at the start of odd rows. Some rows are worked even. Some positions require working the group pattern. The last few rows need to create short rows. The method is identical to the previous short rows. Increases are needed according to a pattern on the second to last row. Some positions on the last row are the pattern positions for section 3. Knit corresponding stitches. The SL1PW2 are from the group patterns, is for the first row of section 3. Start from the second row of the corresponding stitches. Refer to the charts. Finish the remaining part of section 2. That concludes section 2. Next, we move on to section 3. This section is symmetrical to section 1. Decreases are needed on the right side of the fabric. Gradually reduce the number of groups. The decreases are made at the end of even-numbered rows. Change the color every 2 rows as well. Below, I will demonstrate the knitting method for section 3. Here, I will use this small sample for the demonstration. For the first 3 rows, work according to the chart. After completing, continue working the 4th row until you reach the position where there are 3 stitches left. I have now reached the corresponding position. Work at SKP to decrease. Leaving 1 stitch, knit the corresponding stitch. The 4th row is completed. For the following odd-numbered rows, change the color and knit normally. For even-numbered rows, decrease when you have 3 stitches left at the end. Continue knitting until you reach the position with 3 stitches left on the last row. The last row is completed. There are 3 stitches left here. Use color 1 to bind off. There is one loop left on the needle. Keep this one stitch. Cut the yarn for color 2, leaving a long tail. Leave the tail for now without handling it. At this point, the explanation for section 3 is complete. Next, I will explain the method for making an I-cord. There are two widths of the I-cord. I call them I-cord 1 and I-cord 2. Start by continuing with the previous tail to work I-cord 1. Here, I will continue using this small sample for the demonstration. Begin by working back loop cast on to increase 4 stitches. Then, knit 4 stitches evenly. After completing, slip the 5th stitch knitwise. Continue by picking up the next braid on the edge. Insert the needle and pick up the adjacent braid. Then, pass over the slip stitch. One stitch has been bind off. Continue downward. Transfer the loops 2 on the right needle to the other end. Then, knit 4 stitches corresponding. Pull the first stitch slightly tighter. Slip the 5th stitch knitwise. Next, in the adjacent braid below, pick up 1 stitch. Then, pass over the slip stitch. Other stitch on the edge has been bind off. I will demonstrate this again. Move the loops to the other end of the needle. Continue knitting 4 stitches. Slip the 5th stitch knitwise. Then, below the adjacent braid on the edge, pick up 1 stitch. Pass over the slip stitch. Continue in this way. Each time, pick up the braid on the edge. When you finish edging, there will be a braid texture on top of the fabric. Continue working downward. Keep working until you reach the starting point. Down to the corresponding position. Next, you need to work the I-cord 2. Here, we need the 4 stitches to make the I-cord 2. You need to decrease 1 stitch first. Start with a K2 tog. Decrease 1 stitch. Then, knit evenly. Insert the needle at the starting point. Pick up one stitch. Pass over the previous. Knit stitch. One stitch has been bind off. Continue sliding the loops. Then work 2 rows. After completing, continue down to the next pickup position. Pick up adjacent edges with 2 strands of yarn. Insert the needle and pick up 1 stitch. Pass the precious stitch cover. Other stitch has been bind off. Continue to work 2 rows. Then pick up at the next position. Pick up 2 strands of the edge. Pick out 1 stitch. Pass over the previous stitch. Continue to work 2 rows. Pick up stitches along the section 1's edge. Insert the needle into the second space from the edge. Pick up corresponding stitches. Then bind off the picked up stitch. Work 2 rows. Working the I cord. Insert the needle into the second space from the edge of the next row. Pick out 1 stitch. Bind off it. For I cord toe, work 2 rows. Then pick out 1 stitch on the edge and bind off the picked out stitch. When inserting the needle here, always pick up from the second space, from the edge of each row. The specific position can be adjusted according to the actual situation, as long as the fabric lays flat when finished. Continue working down until you reach the position before section 2. When you reach the corresponding position, continue using the method for I-cord 1, which is an I-cord made up by 5 stitches. Here, first use the back loop, cast on to increase 1 stitch. Then begin working. When picking up stitches on the edge, insert the needle next to the color change position. Continue working in the same way. For section 2, work the I-cord 1 along the edging. For section 3, use I-cord 2 to create the edging. The position for pickup should be the same as on the side of section 1. The bind-off position also similar to the I-cord 2. During the process, make sure the fabric stays flat. The entry position can also be adjusted according to the actual situation. Continue working the remaining part. Once completed, join the ends together. So to create a braid-like texture, you can see at the starting position, there are 4 braids in the first row. Pick up the loops and sew them to these 4 braid positions. Leave a long tail and cut off the yarn. Then thread it into a sewing needle. Pull the yarn out from behind the first loop on the right side. Then sew it with the first braid. Insert back from the front side into the first loop. Then drop the first loop. Continue by coming out from behind the left side loop. Pick the second braid to insert the needle. Then insert back from the front side into the loop. And drop the loop. Continue sewing the remaining 2 loops in the same way. Finally, you can adjust the sewn braid, pulling it to lay flat. Lastly, bring the yarn to the wrong side. Make a few knots on the wrong side. And you can weave in more stitches. Hide the yarn tail on the wrong side. This completes the explanation for the I-cord section. Here, the final yarn tail of the fabric should be knotted a few times with the adjacent position, then weave in along the texture. Similarly, you can weave in more stitches. This completes the explanation for the I-cord section. Up to this point, the entire shawl making process has been covered. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next episode.